Charete Pantes, Muesti Jakobus Donadides. I'm Seumas McDonald, and I thought I would just start doing a series where I live vlog answers to questions. So I'm going to set up a Curious Cat, which lets you send questions via Twitter or anonymously. And you can ask me about anything, really. I'll pre-screen the questions. And if there's anything you want to know about anything that I have any kind of knowledge about, feel free to ask, and I'll go away and try to answer. It's easier for me to live stream answers than pre-record them, so that's what this is. So today I want to address a question that came up during my recent paper on tabletop role-playing. That is, why isn't there as much stuff for ancient Greek, spoken ancient Greek, as there is for living Latin? Firstly, that's 100% true. There is lots more out there happening and resources for spoken Latin. I think that's true for a few reasons. Firstly, there has always been an unbroken tradition of speaking Latin, even if that diminished to a great extent in the last 300 years. There were always people who spoke Latin, and so there's always been that continuation. That's not the case with Greek, and it's not the case with Greek because Greek evolved differently, and the direction of Greek in modern times, particularly in the last 500 years, through the development of a diglossia situation and kataravusa and demotic, meant that spoken ancient Greek was not a continuous tradition. Secondly, in terms of absolute numbers, there are more absolute numbers of people doing or studying Latin than there are Greek. So there are just more people involved in Latin, more people doing Latin, more things coming out of Latin. But when you look around, I think really, particularly certainly in the Anglosphere, spoken Latin has seen a revival in the last 50 years. And it started slow. It started small, it started slow, but particularly in the last 10 years, it's kind of exploded. Ancient Greek, in my perspective, is in probably about the same position that spoken Latin was 20 years ago, or maybe 15, hard to say. I wasn't around then in terms of Latin speaking, but you do see the kinds of things that were happening in Latin a certain time ago, now starting to happen in Greek, and accelerating, because not everyone, but most people who are interested in spoken Greek today, particularly if they're on the classic sides of things, the classical Greek, Attic Greek, rather than Cuneic, they are leveraging off, and they are paying attention to what's happening in spoken Latin. So the podcasts, explosion of Latin podcasts, Greek people go, you know what, we could do some Greek podcasts. There's not many, I'm running one of them, but it's starting to happen. The YouTube side of things. So some great YouTube resources for Latin. Now we're beginning to see for a few things for Greek. Triodos or Trivium, Scorpio Martianus is doing a ton of stuff. There's more being developed every day. Certainly for Greek, one of the big explosions was seeing Christoph Rico develop Polis and the Polis Institute and the way that's grown. And then on the other side, the other thing that's interesting in terms of Greek that you don't have in terms of Latin is really the efforts put into biblical languages, where Cuneic Greek's not paired with Latin, but it's paired with biblical Hebrew. And so the work of someone like Randall Booth and the Biblical Languages Center and their development of communicative resources for Cuneic Greek, or Koine Greek, if you prefer. So I do think there are excellent things happening for spoken ancient Greek, both in classical and the Cuneic setting, but it takes time. It takes time to develop those resources. It takes time to develop those speakers. There are far less competent ancient Greek speakers in the world today by a large factor compared to Latin. So there's just this problem of numbers and problem of growth. Spoken ancient Greek is growing. I think it's going to take time to see that really reach full flower, but I think it will happen. And particularly, I think I think there will come a point where people are coming into programs, Latin programs now, and Greek programs in the future, where they've had an experience of communicative ancient Greek, and they are able to speak it, and they're able to write in it, and they wonder why their professors can't. And they wonder why that's not happening in class, and they push. I think that push will come not from the top, or in a few places from the top, but actually I think it will come from the bottom. As students come into colleges, into universities, into programs and say, well, I can understand all these things, and I can read this text fine, and I can talk about it in ancient Greek, and I can pick up the grammatical meta language. It's not that hard, actually, if you understand the language, to pick up the linguistics and to say, well, why can't you? You are the professor, but you can't do these things. I think that is going to push ancient Greek as a spoken communicative language to a new level, in the same way it's going to push Latin to say, at the higher levels of research, of course, you should be able to speak these languages. That's my thought for today. That's my 2 cents. Hope that it was helpful to you, and I look forward to you for our next questions with Seumas. It's called Questions with Seumas because there's no promises of answers. I'll give you my opinion, not necessarily something definitive.